Greetings, chess fans. My name is Arturs Neiksans. I'm the leading Latvian chess grandmaster, and I'm continuing my video series about inside the thought process of a grandmaster. So typically in these videos, I'm talking about my own experiences over the board, because I'm not only right now a content creator, also a well-known chess coach and sometimes a commentator. I'm also a professional player. Nothing really has changed. I've been over 2600 ELO. My highest rating was 2631, to be more precise. So occasionally I am playing still in international chess leagues. So in today's episode, I would like to show you a game that I played end of November in Berlin, Germany. And this was part of my very first weekend in the second Bundesliga. So second Bundesliga is a slightly lower league than obviously the first Bundesliga. Still very, very strong league. And I believe my team, Schachfreunde Berlin, eventually will advance to the highest division. I played myself there many, many years. Either way, maybe that's not really relevant here. So my first opponent on Saturday, that's the game I played, was Torben Knudel, a young player, FIDE master from Germany. And I had done no prep at all, because this is usually what happens when you arrive for a league match. You don't know who has arrived for the very first game for your opponent, so you just basically, whatever, what's going to happen is going to happen. And I was really curious to test more d4 as my main move, and this is precisely what I did. So I played d4 and I thought, okay, whatever, we're gonna see what's gonna happen. My opponent responded with knight f6, c4, e6. I played knight f3. I mean, Nimzo I'm not yet ready to include, but I think it's gonna be probably an addition to my repertoire at some point. And my opponent played e5. Now, this is naturally mainstream theory, and I decided to be trendy because, as all of you are aware, I've been making daily recaps of the World Championship match between Ding Liren and Gukesh. So in game 3, Gukesh decided to take on d5. And I decided to repeat the trend. But in case you're curious, what is the actual reason? I think the reason was explained in one of the episodes by Take YouTube channel, which is this brand new initiative of Magnus Carlsen, Gotham Chess, and Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus said, I believe in the episode 3 of the World Championship match recaps, that knight c3 at the competitive level is considered to be a draw because of c5, of c takes on d4, and e takes on d5. And there's this line with e4, knight c6, etc., 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 bishop e5, d takes on e4, and the line goes on. Black is drawing this. And apparently there's no real alternatives to this. You know, I'm not really sure if this applies to us mortals, right? So I think knight c3 definitely is still playable, but, you know, I wanted to feel how it feels to be in Gukesh's shoes, so I decided to repeat c takes on d5. And from the game 3. And my opponent started to think, because he also, I would assume, was following the World Championship match. No choice here. E takes on d5 has to be played. I mean, knight takes on d5, I'm sorry, it just makes no sense. Yeah, so white just plays e4, and this is like a terrible version of the semi-Tarash or Grunfeld or whatever. So e takes on d5 is necessary. Knight c3. Now the point here is that these Tarash ideas no longer work. I mean, probably Black can still play this, but as once a very strong German grandmaster Alexander Donchenko told me, this is the line that nobody even dares to study, because everybody knows that after g3 white is always better. Yeah, so there's not much you need to know. g3, bishop g2, castles, take on c5, Black has an IQP, but not a typical attack at a king set. So yeah, c5 here is inaccurate, and my opponent plays c6. I repeated the game 3 of the World Championship match, queen c2. So the big idea here is that Black wants to play bishop f5, and this is also a pretty common theme of all kinds of lines, like in the London, like in the exchange Caracan. For example, if I would show you an exchange Caracan line, d4, d5 takes, bishop d3, knight c6, c3, knight f6, bishop f4. Black is quite often suffering because of the placement of this light square bishop. Yeah, and he even goes to extreme length as bishop g4, bishop h5, bishop g6 to solve the problem, because if he plays e6, then the bishop on c8 is kind of passive. Why this is relevant? Because I think a rising position is going to be quite similar. And the black tries to get out the bishop, so that's why here queen c2 I played, and this is of course what Gukesh played in this aforementioned game. So the idea is to exploit the fact that black cannot position the bishop at f5, and also bishop g4. To be honest, I didn't really know any opening theory here. I just thought that probably this doesn't really make any sense because I can just play knight e5, hit the bishop, and if he plays bishop h5, I don't really think that black is ready to play bishop g6 immediately. And I just thought, I'm gonna find a way. To be honest, I didn't really check what I'm supposed to do here. I suppose somehow try to win the bishop, but I'm thinking like f3, g4, h4 ideas. Maybe this looks interesting. Yeah, even without any engine analysis like this. And if he goes here, I could take it and maybe play g5, e4, get two bishops and a strong center. So I'll have to check, to be honest. And so what he did, he played knight e7, which is okay move. In case you remember, Ding played g6, the principal move, insisting on bishop f5, and this is when Gukesh played h3, bishop f5, queen b3, queen b6, and this highly provocative move g4. So the point here is black takes it and plays bishop c2, then white plays bishop f4. The bishop on c2 sometimes is kind of in trouble because now there's knight e2 hitting the bishop, and after bishop c4, white just takes on c4, plays e4 with a strong center. But bishop c2, rook c1, black can lose the bishop, which by the way was a big topic of this game 3 of the World Championship match, so we're not going to repeat it here. My opponent thought here for like 10 minutes, and he decided to play knight e7. So I was thinking, okay, now what? And obviously, I was thinking I have to get out the bishop and then play e3, because now e3 makes no sense because my bishop on c1 is going to be pretty passive. e4 is just creating me unnecessary weakness on d4. So I got to continue with bishop g5. But I was thinking how to accomplish the ideal setup with bishop f4, h3 and e3. So this I kind of knew that this is the best. If I manage to play h3 against knight h5 ideas, I managed to play e3, and I managed to play bishop d3. And maybe then I can castle alongside, I can play g4, or even just play short side and rook b1 and b4, b5. There's many ideas. But the point is, I cannot get it to work. Because after bishop f4, he always plays knight h5. And after the game, my opponent told me, that he had planned to play knight h5. And I don't want to trade the bishop like this, because this means the black gets easily the bishop pair and a lot of freedom. Maybe g6, bishop g7, maybe knight f6, bishop e7. And the logic is, the side who has the bishop pair, he can open up the position at some point later, because the strength of the bishops increases when the position is open. So for me, it's going to be very difficult to play this position without the two bishops. So that's why, I was not sure about this knight h5 move. And bishop g5 is just bishop e7, black knight just goes back. So I decided, okay, fine. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to play bishop g5 instead. He played here, I'm going to play e3. And he included this move, which I think is pretty smart. Because if he castles short, I was still considering playing like h3. And if he goes, let's say here, I can now, even with the loss of a tempi, play bishop f4. And now knight h5 is bishop h2, bishop d3, should castle g4, you name it. Actually, the pawn on h6 is a hook. And because of this move, I could open up the g file with the future g4, g5 and start this attack at the g file. But again, I think that after the show castle h3, most likely he can play knight h5. And the bishop is trapped. I can nowhere go, and something like h4, I was not yet ready to explore like this. Maybe offer him to take it. I open up the h file, bishop d3. Here, he plays h6. Maybe I can sack the piece. I don't know. So yeah, anyway, I was looking at some options here. I decided just to play normal chess. Yeah, but anyway, he started with h6, which is, again, like I said, pretty smart, because this allows knight h5. And I was looking at this moment for a moment. There is this trick, by the way, sometimes in simple positions you can play knight e5, with the point that after bishop c7 you're trapping the queen, but this doesn't work. There's the check, and the queen escapes. Yeah, so black can play knight h5 while knight e5 is not working. And I was looking at this and I tried to understand what is this position after bishop d3. So I leave the bishop on f4, because he has weakened the pawn on h6. So let's say he decides to take it, and he decides to castle. I castle the long side. If he plays bishop d6, I jump knight e5. You see, I mean, he has major difficulties to get rid of me with f6. I mean, this just feels like lights out immediately. And if he takes on e5, let's say with the knight, I play f takes, f4, g4. The attack is just looking very serious. So that's why here I was not sure what is this even, yeah? So like rook g1, a4, g4, a3, b3. I played g5, and then I checked at home the engine. Engine says this position is just equal. Yeah, whatever. You know, it's a very fun way to play, but definitely I'm not keeping control what's happening here. So I decided play bishop h4 instead. Bishop d3, he played rook e8. Yeah, rook e8 is necessary move because he's prepping to play knight e4. And I was thinking what else I can do. So I did play short castle here after some thought. But I thought maybe knight e2 makes interesting to combat the e4 square. But again, he can play c5, suddenly change the character of the position, like d takes and knight c5. He plays d4, my knight on d2 is weird. So no, I didn't really like knight e2, so I just decided to castle short. Castle short, knight e4. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now this is the critical moment, and I have like a million choices. This is obviously a very classical position. And normally what people do here, they take on e7. And after queen e7, then out on e4 is protected. So I don't think this is very good. So I play knight e2, he plays knight f6. I play whatever I play, like rook b1 with b4, b5. He plays h5. Let me tell you, I do not like this. He's attacking me at the king side, h4, h3. Maybe I play h3 myself. There's some queen or rook lift on g5. And the black is just attacking. Bishop f5, etc. There's also another idea, and this is something I've been teaching to my students, the idea to play rook b1, or to play b4, b5. Yeah, try to create a weakness on c6. So this is what we call the play on the pawn minority. And let's say black tries to do this, and I go here, and black tries to do this, and I go here, and he does this, and he goes here, and I play b5. Maybe all of this is not very accurate, but the big idea eventually is try to get a position where I have a one-pawn island, he has two pawn islands, and this pawn on c6 is a weakness. So I can target it. This I know. But when I was sitting here doing the game, I was looking at this. I was not sure I like it. So I decided to try another idea. I decided to play bishop takes on e4. So the point here is that after d takes on e4, queen e4, he can't take on h4, I'm just in time to defend the bishop. He can't exploit the potential discovered attack on the queen with the bishop and the rook on e8. So basically he has to take. Now I give this very annoying check on h7. And the idea of this move is that in some lines after king h8, the pawn on f7 is going to be loose. Speaking about king f8, I was not really sure if he can do it. But normally in these positions, it makes sense to position the king further in the corner. And this is what he did. So here I had another thought. I was thinking I have like at least a couple of ways to continue. So my minimal continuation is just to take the bishop so that he doesn't have the bishop here and retreat on d3 and enjoy slightly better minor pieces. Or the second idea, which was very tempting, retreat with the bishop and after bishop e7, go for some e4. And that's the perk of being a chess commentator of high-level tournaments. I had seen one game from Bill Chess Festival played by Salem Saleh, the strongest Emirati grandmaster, and he played like this with the wise perspective. with knight e4, knight f6. Sometimes there's an idea to play knight e5, using the fact that bishop h7 has been played. There's some problems with opponent f7, but he played something like this, bishop e6, rook e1, and just threw every single piece at the king. But if I remember correctly, black had misplayed the position earlier. And I tried to make it work here. I was looking at this. Is this a thing? Like I could play like rook e3, a3, rook e1, knight e5, knight f5, etc. But at the same time, black can just always play king g8, fix the weakness on f7, bishop f8, and I basically have to prove what I have. I think I would have played this in a blitz game, but not in a classical game. So what I did, I played knight h4. Now, since g6 is threatened to trap the bishop, I have to retreat. And I estimated this position to be slightly better to me, because he has worse pieces. I have the better bishop, I have the better knight. And yeah, I can still proceed with the idea to play rook b1, b4, b5, or just play something else. Now, my opponent played knight f6, which is not a bad move. But in the hindsight, maybe there was a better idea to play queen e7, to bring the queen back to the defense, stopping any b4 ideas, and then play knight f6. Yeah, let's say I could go here, he would go, let's say a5, I play a3, he would go here, I play b4, and he would take it, and I just want to play b5. And I just knew that these positions are somehow slightly better for white, like here, b5, maybe not immediately, but that's one of the ideas. He can walk past it, and we can just transpose to like a typical IQP position. So he takes it here, put the knight on d4, and slightly better, but not a big deal. At least I think so. So maybe here after bishop e6, I could like play first knight a4, knight c5, b5, and again try to create these weaknesses. And he doesn't have this typical king set attack. That's why he decided to keep the queen on h4, which was pretty logical, yeah? So he played knight f6. And his idea was that at some point he's going to play like queen g5, with bishop h3 or queen g5, h5, h4, etc. And indeed, I was looking at this and I tried to understand what happens, let's say, if I play b4. So, by the way, queen g5, I can just play b5, and bishop h3 is a 4. Suddenly the queen on c2 defends the pawn on g2, and the queen is like really awkward here. Queen g4, rook e1, I think actually this bishop is just dropping. So I'm going to play king h1, and the bishop is lost. So, yeah, I wasn't sure. And he could play like bishop g4, I would play b5, and he could just take it. And I was looking at something like this along the lines, and I tried to understand if this is any good. And I just don't really like the prospect that my opponent has some sort of initiative at the king side. Even though probably this is slightly better to me because I have a better pawn structure, like 2 pawn islands against 3. And there's no king side attack. The queen on h4 is looking menacing, but that's all it is. So I decided to play differently. I played rook e1. So this idea kind of implies I want to play f3, e4, which is another famous idea from the Cospas structure. But actually the big idea was to trade the queens and enter a slightly better endgame. My opponent did not understand it. He played bishop d7, I played f3, and he was anticipating e4. So that's why he played rook e7, which I think is an inaccuracy. And for a longest time, I was pretty sure that he has to play c5. The point is, this is a pretty common maneuver. As soon as white plays f3, black plays c5, wants to regain the pawn on c5, and the pawn on e3 is kind of loose. That's why the pawn on f2 better protects it. The pawn on f3, the pawn on e3 becomes loose. So I was looking at a couple of lines here from a distance. Like if I take it here, he plays queen b4, hits the pawn, and I thought I'm slightly better, but I was not sure how much. Actually, here the engine says I can play knight b1, rook c8, and just trade the queens, which I suppose makes perfect sense. And this position, like even knight c3 go back, he has a weak pawn on d5, I have an outpost here, but here engine shockingly says king f2 is the best, allowing the bishop trade, and this is like much better to white. I suppose, yeah, why not? I mean, rook d1, rook d2, knight c3, play g4, h4, g5, bother the bishop on the knight on f6, it feels like this pawn probably is gonna fall. So let me just show you like one line. Let's say he goes somewhere here, I go here, he goes here, I go here, here, here. And yeah, now this already is a big threat. So he would have to like somehow defend. And I could play right now, let's say g4. Let's say he goes like this. I play h4. I want to win a pawn. And after something like g5, there might be a moment to exploit this weakness on f5. Yeah, like knight e2, knight e4. Sorry. Knight e2 or knight e4, knight e5. Hit the pawn here. Play rook h1. Play king g3. It's just very unpleasant. I had some experience in similar rank games. But I didn't know it's so much better. Alright, so my opponent said after the game that he was slightly concerned about g3, so that there's no queen b4, but that's what I didn't really want to do, because now it feels that no matter, even if I'm up a pawn, my king is so weak, and with the queens on the board, I just don't like it. Like, yeah, there's this continuation, and I just don't like even to look at this for even 1 second any further. Black just has so much activity, even though Neiksans somehow finds some minimal plus after knight e4. I don't like it. So yeah, either way, after c5, I was pretty sure I'm going to take on c5, but I didn't really calculate much during the game because I thought my opponent still has to make this big decision. He played rook e7, tried to apply some pressure here, and yeah, I was not really going to play e4 because I felt that this kind of makes no sense because I have like a strong center, but it lacks any proper support. For example, e5 drops the pawn. So, I mean, what's the big threat anyway of playing e5? Let's say, whatever, let's say h3, bishop e6, e5, he plays knight e5. So what about these pawns? Even if the pawn on d4 somehow is protected. I just didn't feel I have any reason why should I play e4 and make those pawns a target. And that's the thing about the center. Center is a good thing, but it needs to be backed by pieces, and there needs to be like a follow-up. So I didn't really see what to do after this, so I played queen f2, which is yet another reason why I think he should have positioned the queen on e7 earlier. And yeah, like queen g5 maybe is a possibility, but the queen stands here pretty weird. Maybe it's not weird, I don't know, but I felt that black probably is going to trade it. So he did. I took with a king because we are approaching the endgame phase. And I was pretty sure he has to go like b6, c5. So how did he do it actually? So let's say rook c8, I play b4, he plays b6. The point is, the main problem for black, he is risking having no counterplay. This is the worst thing that can happen to you, because I have my pawn play. So I'm going to play g4, h4, g5. If nothing dramatic happens, and then maybe include the e4. So I'm flexible with e4, I'm flexible with g4, h4, g5, I'm flexible with a4, b5. At the same time, black cannot do those things. He cannot trade my good pieces. He cannot trade the light square bishop. I mean, I can always play g4. He cannot trade the knight. So basically, his only idea is to do something in the queen side. Something a5 for b6, c5 related. So I thought he has to do this. And during the game, I thought I can at least go here. c5 takes, rook c5 and knight e4, not allowing the trade, and then somehow lift the rooks to the queen side. But Neiksans actually says I can do better. I can start with rook b1 immediately, which, by the way, is perfectly logical move. And now play rook c1. Yeah, now the rook controls the b file, then the rook controls the c file, knight e2 is incoming, maybe even knight b5 at some point, and black has just not a great position. So this is the best he could have done. So what my opponent did, yeah, he played rook e8, which I think again is a wrong idea because he was anticipating that I'm gonna play e4. So e4 again makes no sense. e4 takes. He could just play maybe like bishop e6. The pawns are blocked. e5 is gonna be knight e5, and nothing is happening there. So what I did now, I played h3 because I really don't want to play g4, h4, g5 to push away the knight and maybe play for the checkmate, but he can always sacrifice the bishop here. So I was not sure what is this, like knight g4, king g1, knight e3, 3 pawns for the minor piece. We're approaching an endgame. Maybe I'm slightly better, but I thought this is just unclear and too much counterplay for my opponent. So that's why I played h3, which was like a multi-purpose move. I wanted to consider playing g4 at some point later, And if he plays h5, maybe now, maybe I can play e4 in some lines because I'm taking care of the g4 square, and then the e5 knight to b4 could be a thing. But to be honest, I was not gonna play e4. It's just like an extra opportunity. Engine actually says b4 is the best. Yeah, immediately play at the queenside, b4, a4, b5, knight a4, expand at the pawn minority. But I thought this is going nowhere. I mean, it's not gonna disappear anywhere. So he played finally b6, I played b4, and now, yeah, he made a big mistake. He played b5. I'm sorry, yeah, first he played bishop e6. He was trying to lift the rooks at the c file and play like b5 and a5. So I went here. Yeah, now he made a big mistake, b5. So as he explained to me after the game, he wanted to play a5. Like, let's say I'm making some random move. He plays a5, he plays rook a7, he's hoping to take over the game. But again, I mean, I'm playing at the queenside first, so I was a bit faster to play a4, and now he is like immediately attacked. The point here is that a5 doesn't work. I just take it, I go here, and this pawn just lives. I mean, I could even push it forward while the pawn on b3 is just most likely gonna fall. So he cannot do it, and if he plays something like a6, it just gives me too many pleasant opportunities. So the first opportunity, I can just close the queenside and play a5. And there is this maneuver with b5 in the Gospel structure, where black plays like knight e8, knight e6, and knight c4, but still it doesn't solve the problem of the bad last square bishop. You see all of these pawns are on the color of my own last square bishop, so this means basically any endgame, black is going to be suffering. Maybe even now play e4, e5, knight e4, knight c5. Or maybe try to get my own knight on c5 and hit the pawn on a6. So I didn't really think about this too much. My opponent decided to take on a4 immediately. I took it here. And his big idea was to organize a counterplay against my b4 pawn. So rook c6, rook b4, I thought gives my opponent too much counterplay. So I went here. So the big idea was, after this move, I play knight c5, which is something he missed from afar, because he thought that he's just going to take on b4, he's doing okay, but actually after rook a1, he's borderline losing. The point here is that I'm about to take on a7, and he has not only back rank issues, but everything on the 7th rank is starting to fall apart. So it's very difficult to make a good move. So okay, he can maybe give a check here, king f1, but now what? So knight e7 loses. I just take it, and I play rook a7. The bishop is under attack, and back rank is here. Do you remember why I gave a check on h7? So this will be okay position with a king on g8. Yeah, so rook a8 will be king f8, and black is holding on. Slightly worse, but he's holding on. He can't do it. That's why this check was, again, one of the reasons why it's so important to give this check earlier. What else? Maybe he can play like avoid the back rank mate with g5. I just take with a7, and I'm threatening to hit his pawns. So maybe king g8, and he goes here, and he goes here, and I don't know, I mean, bishop a6, bishop b7, maybe even g4, take even more space, advance the king. He's literally tied. He has no active moves. So that's why this position is borderline losing. And yeah, also I saw there was a cool line. If he tries to go aggressive with knight h5, I just play g4. King e1, and again, back rank mate, rook a7 is threatening. At some point, maybe knight a6. Now this knight is after the game, so I was very excited about this. So what happened in the game is that he didn't do this. He played rook b6 instead. And yeah, I was thinking how to continue now, because I really wanted to lift the other rook to a1 so that I hit the pawn on a7, but I couldn't find a way to do it, because if I play rook b2, he plays a5. My rook is now undefended, which, by the way, is defended now, by the way. Then I was thinking I could go like here, but again, the point is after rook b4 takes, we transpose the same line, but I kind of didn't see the purpose of this move. So then I want to play knight a6 first, to hit the rook, defend the pawn, to prep the idea of rook b2 and rook a1, and then go back with the knight. But then I noticed he has bishop f5. Bishop f5, if I take it, he takes on a6, and if I take on b8, he takes on d3. bad news. So that's why I decided to play g4. Okay, engine here is silly. g4 is a great move. I mean, I'm stopping bishop f5. I'm gaining space. Also, in some lines, I get access to king g3. Also, I bring the possibility of h4 g5 on the table. It's just a great move. And if he would play like knight e7 right now, I don't have to trade. Now I play knight a6. There's no bishop f5. And whatever he does, I just go here. I go here, I go here. I just improve the threat. I go back at some point, knight c5, and again, the pawn is going to be under attack. So his position is just incredibly bad. Yeah, so I play g4, he went g5, trying to combat my space advantage. Now I play knight a6, there's no bishop f5 anymore. He played here. I mean, he attempted to organize some counterplay with a5. I went here. My idea is really simple. I want to apply some pressure here, prep maybe rook a1, or think about already ideas like knight c5, knight a4. It's just very difficult for him to make the moves, and with the next move he immediately blundered. But the position already was terrible. So he played knight e8 with the idea to play a5, and his logic was that knight e7, I could even afford to make a quiet move. Like I could go, for example, here, and f5 is not even a threat, because I play knight c7, I hit the bishop, and he's just dropping the pawn. I was looking at something like this, and I thought maybe he can sacrifice a piece like this and this, but I didn't really believe it, that it's going to work. Maybe just bishop f5, and I'm just dominating with my pieces. But to be honest, I saw this idea of f5, f takes on g4, that he can sack the piece, so I just don't need to do this, mainly. Yeah, so I could just play like whatever move, maybe, I don't know, maybe like king g2, he plays a5, now I go here, and he goes here. Now I can just take with e6, a rook f3 doesn't feel as good, but even h takes on g3 is just good. Playing for pure domination. Bishop goes back, and bishop f5, and I'm just completely dominating the board with my piece activity. So, yeah, I keep playing knight e8, and now after knight c5, the game is essentially is over. Because I'm threatening to play knight a4, and he can't defend the pawn. He can't play f5, the bishop is under attack. So he went here, and after knight a4, he's just dropping the pawn. That's it. There's no rook a6. And now his position just starts to fall apart. Now he played f5, his final attempt to try to do something, but after king g7, I just played knight c5, he's paralyzed completely. I mean, if he now plays f5, I sacrifice the exchange. I play knight e6, I take on f8, and I collect the pawn on f5. So again, this is completely winning. 2 extra pawns. If he doesn't do that, what's his next move, really? So, knight f6 is rook c7. This pawn is collected, the b pawn rolls forward. Apart from that, I have no idea, really. Yeah, so bishop b7, maybe. Yeah, by the way, after bishop b7, some reason I forgot about this move. It was something I was planning. I mean, okay, at least I can just take it here and play b5 and rook a1 on here. And again, close strategically winning position. So my opponent decided to play f5, whatever. So the game is approaching to the finish line, so he's seeking some final chance. And I just take on h6 and play rook h5. So the point here, this counterattack on g4 is not working. It's very obvious. There's rook g5. He's dropping the bishop. And he played king g6, but now this walks into a pin. Yeah, so there's no choice. But he's trying to trap my rook with either knight g7 or knight f6, so h4 makes perfect sense. I'm also thinking about going for unexpected king-set attack against the king. I have 2 extra pawns and they have the attack. And the game just finished very quickly. He played knight f6. I played g takes on f5. He can't take it. There's rook g1 check. He's dropping the bishop. And after king g5, final moment. So I'm thinking, well, this awfully looks like a mate to me. So instead of just wrapping up the game, like playing rook h2, rook g1, which forces the resignation, I'm thinking, let's try to treat this position as an actual puzzle. And I should try to be accurate until the very end. Can I checkmate? And I did find a pretty cute mate. So here I played f4. Yeah, so he has to take it. And I'm a big fan of quiet king moves. King f3. Now you see this king is imprisoned. I'm playing rook h1, and this is like a back rank mate, only from the side. So you see these pawns don't allow the king to escape in either way. Knight g4 helps nothing. It's rook h1. Bishop f5 is just bishop f5, and rook h1 is just killing. And my opponent was a gentleman to allow me to execute the mate on the board. He played rook g8 and rook h1. He resigned. So that's it. I was very excited about the game, and I later checked with an engine. It was close to a perfect game. Some minor inaccuracies. I was always slightly better. So everything I showed you, that was also the top choices of the engine with the counter plans. I think that his mistake was keeping the queen on h4. He should have retreated with queen on h7. This endgame is just slightly worse. And yeah, I think that with such slightly worse pieces with no counterplay, I felt very confident in my winning chances, and I did capitalize. So that's it. So if you like the game, write your thoughts. How is your experience in the Cosmic structures? You like the game in general? I thought it was a pretty cool game, and of course, if you like it, please press like to the video and subscribe to my channel, as I will be making more videos. Thank you for watching. I'm signing off.